was interested in what your position would be on this China bill, because it had been sort of on the back burner. Chuck Schumer had this as a big priority. Sounded pretty good, but when you dug into it, this is what you came up with. This is the Republican Study Committee, just a few points, saying that this new bill invites more Chinese Communist Party actors into the U.S. via the visa program, provides more opportunities for China to steal intellectual property, lets China off the hook for their role in the pandemic, and includes policies inspired by divisive and anti-American critical race theory. There are more points that your study group had put out, but those are just a few of them. So, let's give you a chance to just give your overall take on this bill and what concerns you the most.
Yeah, Dana, if I've learned anything in Washington, D.C. over the last 5 years is that Democrats are very talented at the bait and switch. They name a bill something that it doesn't have anything to do with. They did it with infrastructure, and the infrastructure bill was less than 6% about infrastructure. In this case, this so-called competes bill, which I believe rather should be called the concedes bill, mentions coral reefs. If you do a search of the 2,900 pages, you'll find coral reefs mentioned more than you'll find the word China mentioned anywhere in the bill. It gives billions of dollars to the UN Climate Fund. It creates a chief diversity officer at the National Science Foundation to advance critical race theory and many of the radical agenda items of the left-wing Democrats. It doesn't do anything to compete with China. It doesn't do anything to sanction them and hold them accountable for their bad behavior. Rather, it gives hundreds of billions of dollars to woke universities to do research when we know that those same universities are being raided on a daily basis by the Chinese Communist Party, who steals their research and intellectual property that we pay for with our taxpayer dollars. So I've rarely seen a bill that Republicans in the House are this unified in opposing, but I believe Republicans are there. We oppose it, and for good reason.
Sir, do you... there is a lot of criticism, justifiably so, directed towards Russia right now. And sometimes you hear less of that directed toward Beijing. Why is that?
We're at an ideological place, Bill, where Democrats seem to think that Russia is our greater adversary and threat. And I don't minimize it. They certainly are a great threat to our way of life and to American interest abroad. But the same Democrats who want to sanction Russia and go to war over Ukraine's border with Russia are completely silent about the much greater threat that we face, and that being China, both economically and militarily. I can tell you at the Republican Study Committee, where I'm chairman, 160 House Republican members of our caucus, we have our own bill, the Countering Communist China Act, 45 co-sponsors, and it's a tough on China bill. It sanctions the Chinese Communist Party for their malign activities in affecting our economy in such a drastic way, causing the spread of COVID-19, their negligence on that part, restricting us from going in and studying the origins of COVID-19. These are serious issues that Democrats have completely turned a blind eye to. And so you almost wonder, do they want to focus on Ukraine and Russia to distract from the greater threat that we face with China because of their political entanglements, their Wall Street and Silicon Valley big tech donors who own the Democrat Party today, who are deeply and financially entangled with Chinese interests? That's the only theory that I can come up with.
It's really interesting. I've been following this for a while. I am going to go and I'm going to do the search word for coral reefs, because that is intriguing. Thank you so much for explaining that to us, and we'll watch it as it continues.